Messi que entrarà dins l'àrea, com Dembe o Messi que fa la passada, pilota per Dembélé, som-hi Ousmane Dembélé, gol!
Rewind to 2016. At Rennes, he was that skinny kid weaving past grown-ups with his socks sagging and a goofy grin, turning Liga 1 pitches into his own dribbling maze. Dortmund grabbed him after a single season, and a year later, Barcelona wired €105 million plus change large enough to make the finance guys choke to make him Neymar's heir. 17,000 culés packed Camp Nou for the unveiling, already chanting like he dropped a hat-trick on Madrid. He stepped up to the mic and basically said he was there to soak everything in. And he sure got a crash course. 3 league games in. Ping, torn hamstring. Then tweaked ankle, a busted shoulder, another soft tissue pull. Anytime momentum built, the treatment table beeped his name. The flashes were wild. 1 week a top corner whip at Wembley, the next a slalom that left 4 Sevilla shirts dizzy. But they never turned into a fire. Across 7 seasons, he logged just 127 outings, roughly 7,500 minutes. In other words, almost 2 full years of football vanished to rehab bans and MRI scans. The Camp Nou unveiling looked like a summer festival. Drones buzzing, children chanting, flashbulbs turning the turf silver. He juggled a ball for the cameras, sipped, laughed and juggled again, winning over supporters with shy grin and instinctive swagger. 4 La Liga games later, a hamstring snapped on a routine sprint in Getafe, sending him to a Finnish operating theatre and forcing Barca to rethink an entire wing of their attack. He came back mid-season, scored against Chelsea, landed awkwardly and limped away again. New managers arrived, each promising better muscle load monitoring, customized sleep cycles, and extra yoga sessions. The comeback cycles felt endless. 3 weeks of excitement, 1 misplaced stride, another month in the physio's room. Yet, every analyst who clipped his best moments agreed the ceiling remained skylight high. Defenders, well, they admitted they dreaded his feints more than a late-night VAR call. When he did string matches together, the flashes were electric, slicing through Villarreal, curling a postage stamp finish beyond Jan Oblak, and rattling in crosses that left Luis Suarez grinning like a lottery winner. His final Barcelona stretch in 2022-23 hinted at a breakout, double-digit assists in half a campaign, and a dribble map darker than a Jackson Pollock canvas. Still, the fit never felt seamless. Barca's possession carousel demanded patient triangles, Dembele wanted roller coaster tracks, while Neymar had evolved into a roving playmaker who could drop deep. Ousmane preferred acceleration lanes and raw turbulence. The mismatch plus fragile hamstrings kept the promise in half light. Some supporters muttered about sunk costs. Yet, the roar that greeted each touch suggested hope never fully dimmed. Paris Saint-Germain called in July 2023, pitching home cooking, an obsessive medical staff, and a coach ready to redraw formation lines around his pace. He signed, trimmed processed sugars from his diet, devoted mornings to eccentric hamstring work, and afternoons to French-style rondos where the ball zipped faster than in Spain. Analysts noted a new trend. His top-speed bursts actually climbed, while total sprint count fell, an efficient upgrade born of sports science dashboards. Fans who once groaned about the high-price imports now watched him reinvent himself as a central surge weapon. The Parc des Princes playlist even added a track named after him, the bass dropping whenever he accelerated along the touchline. January 2025 felt cinematic. First came a stoppage-time volley to clip Monaco in the Trophée des Champions, then, 10 nights later, that gallop from halfway to finish a 4-goal shootout with Manchester City. His phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from former teammates who couldn't decide which clip to post. By mid-February, the numbers looked unreal. 18 goals, 7 assists across 11 fixtures, including back-to-back hat-tricks, 1 in Europe, 1 in Liga 1, something even Ibrahimovic never managed under the Paris lights. Kids outside the stadium practice his inside-outside chop, dubbing it Le Dem and racing to upload slow-motion clips. Commentators who once doubted his end product now scrambled for fresh superlatives, joking that statisticians needed an emergency coffee supply. Roll clarity? That tops the list. Luis Enrique stations him 10 meters inside the touchline, so he can dart back into channels rather than hugging sideline chalk. That subtle tweak, well, it forces centre-backs into uncomfortable choices. Step out and leave space behind, or hold the line and watch him turn to shoot. Tracking data shows nearly 3/4 of his efforts now come inside the box, explaining the leap from occasional scorcher to weekly double. The coaching staff also shortened his pre-game warm-up, focusing on explosive but controlled movements, which seems to keep soft tissues happier. A red card in Munich last November became the fork in his season. Suspended 2 matches, he doubled gym reps, studied video until midnight, and promised staff he'd time tackles rather than lunge on adrenaline. Since that vow, only 5 fouls in 20-plus outings, a subtle measure of matured control. Teammates talk about a player who now arrives early for meetings, asks for analytics on his pressing angles, and ends training with extra finishing from awkward angles. Champions League nights write legacy in bold ink. At Anfield, he rescued a tie with an early equaliser, then buried his shootout kick like a veteran penalty taker. Against Arsenal in the semis, he ghosted between centre-back and full-back, rifled Paris's only goal in London, then threaded a reverse pass for Hakimi to clinch the second leg. 12 direct contributions set a tournament record for any player at a French club. The French press reprinted those numbers in midnight special editions. Club archivists are already clearing shelf space in case Paris lifts its first European crown. 21 domestic goals tied him for the Liga 1 Golden Boot. Deeper metrics paint an even brighter stroke. Non-penalty goals per 90, that sits at 0.83, matching Mbappe's pre-Madrid apex, while shot-creating actions tick above 4 a match. He's both architect and demolition crew, fashioning clear chances for teammates and finishing his own. Turnovers are down 22% year-on-year, testament to smarter risk selection. Ball retention in the final third is hovering near 90%, almost unheard of for a high-risk dribbler. Tag on a sprint top speed still nudging 35 km per hour, and the physical package looks fully weaponized. Inside PSG's training center, he's the last off the pitch, running micro-finish drills with academy goalkeepers. Senior pros notice the shift: fewer skyhook crosses, more clipped pullbacks, less dance, more dagger. Coaches trust him to launch the pressing trigger, once unthinkable given his old free-roaming habits. Nutritionists report 0 missed weigh-ins all season. The chef knows his breakfast egg-white ratio by heart. Little details that separate spree scorers from long-haul pros are locking into place. Off the field, he's begun French-language media spots without hesitation, projecting comfort that eluded him in Barcelona. Didier Deschamps can picture a front line of Mbappe and Dembele flanking a roaming Griezmann. Nightmare fuel for high defensive lines. Speed charts? Well, they rate them the fastest wide pair in international football. And Ousmane's improved durability reassures staff he can handle the tournament load. The winger, who once seemed stuck on the bench due to fitness whispers, suddenly projects as a starter for Euro qualifying and perhaps the next World Cup cycle. Sponsorship deals are sure to follow. Boot manufacturers? They already sketch limited edition colorways in tricolour shades. Fast twitch fibers never forget past tears, so PSG's sports science crew, they run weekly neuromuscular scans. Any amber flag triggers a lighter session. Mental pressure remains white hot. 3 quiet matches and talk show panels will call him streaky again. Yet, his response pattern looks different. Rather than forcing 10 reckless dribbles to break a drought, he presses intelligently, slips measured 5-meter layoffs, and burns defenders when they relax. That patience is the best cue this peak may last. Finishing still has room to grow. Shot conversion lingers in the mid-teens, suggesting chances left on the table. Set-piece creativity could also expand. Most of his contributions, they arrive in broken play rather than rehearsed routines. PSG hope to refine those margins, turning great into unplayable. A recent photo shows Dembele holding the League One Player of the Year trophy, while his mother beams beside him. A full circle moment for a family that once juggled multiple part-time jobs to fund boots and bus fares. Not so long ago, she was texting rehab encouragement from their apartment in Vernon. Now, she stands center stage at a Paris gala. Validation that persistence travels generations. His arc underscores an old truth. Talent can zigzag, stall and still sprint past expectations when context clicks. Barcelona purchased a wild stallion and tried to harness it into carefully measured pasture routes. Paris opened a gate, nudged him toward open land, and added GPS so he could run free, yet smart. At 27, he fuses playground flair with adult precision, a blend that defenders find almost unfair. He is living proof that potential sometimes needs a second city and a fresh medical chart before it flowers. If PSG lift the Champions League in Munich, his name will echo through concrete tunnels long after the confetti sweepers clock off. Fullbacks across Europe will exhale in relief that the season finally ended, knowing pre-season film sessions will start again with footage of the cobalt-booted blur. So, how good is Ousmane Dembélé? He's moved beyond raw potential into weekly match winner, carrying statistical heft and highlight magic in equal portion. That makes him not just good, but finally, undeniably great.